Let me take you on a ride that will ruin every mainstream headline you've ever read about Japan. You've seen the clickbait. Japan's economy hasn't grown in 30 years. Japan is dying. Debt 260% of GDP. Game over. And then you land in Tokyo, Osaka, or even a random countryside town and everything works. The 7-Eleven is cleaner than most American hospitals. The train arrives at 9:47, so 3 exactly as scheduled. Old ladies bow when you buy 120 yen onigiri. Crime is basically a myth. Life expectancy is the highest on the planet. Robots deliver your sushi, and old men in their 80s still run marathons. So which one is it? Is Japan a zombie apocalypse or the most successful society in human history? The answer is both, and neither. And today, I'm going to rip the mask off the entire paradox in one continuous 13,000-word rant so you finally understand why Japan is the ultimate mirror for where the rest of us are headed, whether we like it or not. Let's start in 1945. Japan is ash. Hiroshima and Nagasaki are glowing craters. Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, Kobe. Literally every major city has been firebombed into the Stone Age. Over 3 million Japanese are dead. The empire is gone. The emperor goes on radio for the first time in history and tells the nation they lost. People openly weep in the streets. The country has no food, no factories, no navy, no gold reserves, nothing. Fast forward 44 years to 1989, and the same country owns Rockefeller Center, Pebble Beach Golf Course, half of Hollywood, and the land under the Imperial Palace in Tokyo is theoretically worth more than the entire state of California. Japanese tourists are buying Picassos with cashier's checks. Business books in America are titled Japan Number 1. Economists are screaming that Japan is about to overtake the United States and become the dominant superpower of the 21st century. How the hell did that happen? The real story starts in June 1950 when North Korea invades the South. The US needs a giant aircraft carrier parked off the Asian mainland. Japan becomes that carrier. Billions of dollars of US military special procurement orders flood into Japanese factories. Steel mills that were making battleships yesterday start making jeeps and bullets today. The Korean War ends in 1953, but the money doesn't stop. The Cold War is just getting started. Japan gets Marshall Plan level cash without having to fire a single bullet. The Americans rewrite the Constitution, ban the army, and tell Japan, just focus on making money. We'll protect you. And Japan says, bet. What follows is the single greatest economic miracle in recorded history. From 1955 to 1973, Japan grows at an average of almost 10% a year. 10% every year. For 18 years straight, that means the economy doubles every 7 years. A country that was poorer than Mexico in 1950 is richer than France by 1968. Sony invents the Walkman. Toyota invents lean manufacturing. Honda starts beating Harley-Davidson on American soil. Nikon and Canon destroy German camera companies. Japanese salarymen work 90-hour weeks, sleep on trains, drink until they puke, and come back the next day because they genuinely believe they are building a new Japan. Lifetime employment, seniority wages, keiretsu corporate families, Mitai industrial policy, it's a perfectly tuned machine. By 1989, the Nikkei stock index has risen 590x in 35 years. The mood is euphoric. Japanese businessmen are bragging that America is finished, that Western capitalism is inferior, that they have invented a new form of capitalism that will rule the world. And then, in one weekend in September 1985, 5 men in a New York hotel room destroy it all, the Plaza Accord. Picture this. Ronald Reagan is president. The U.S. trade deficit is exploding. Japanese cars and electronics are crushing Detroit and Silicon Valley. Congress is threatening 100% tariffs. Instead of tariffs, the U.S. Treasury Secretary James Baker invites Japan, Germany, France, and the UK to the Plaza Hotel and says, revalue your currencies or we nuke your exports with protectionism. Japan, terrified of losing the American market, signs. Overnight, the yen goes from 240 to the dollar to 120 in less than 2 years. Japanese exports instantly become 50 to 100% more expensive. Toyota's profit margins get murdered. Panasonic gets murdered. Sony gets murdered. What do you do when your entire growth model just got decapitated? The Bank of Japan panics and slashes interest rates to 2.5%. Money becomes basically free. Japanese housewives, salarymen, grandmas. Everyone starts borrowing like crazy. Real estate becomes the new national religion. Golf club memberships trade for millions. Companies borrow 100 yen for every 5 yen of equity. The stock market goes parabolic. By 1989, the Nikkei is at 38,915. The Imperial Palace ground is worth more than all the real estate in California. People are flipping car parking spaces in Tokyo for millions of dollars. It's the biggest bubble in human history, and then it pops. December 29th, 1989, the Nikkei peaks. New BOJ governor comes in, raises interest rates 5 times in 12 months, and the air goes out of the balloon. By 1992, stocks are down 60%. By 2003, they're down 80%. Real estate falls 87% in some areas. Banks are stuffed with collateral that just turned into dust. Companies that were immortal gods in 1989 are now zombie corpses that can't die because the banks can't afford to write off the loans. Here's where Japan makes the fatal mistake that turns one bad hangover into a 35-year coma. They refuse to take the pain. In America, when we have a financial crisis, we do the rip the bandage off thing. 2008. Banks fail, shareholders get wiped out, houses get foreclosed, the system gets cleansed in 18 months of pure agony. Japan does the exact opposite. The Ministry of Finance tells banks that don't recognize the losses, keep lending to the zombies, we'll stimulate our way out. They build bridges to nowhere, airports nobody uses, tunnels under mountains that lead to villages with 20 old people, trillions of dollars of public works. The debt explodes, but the banks stay technically alive. The politicians get to pretend everything is fine, and the economy enters a slow-motion deflationary spiral that still hasn't ended in 2025. Prices start falling, wages freeze, young people see their parents' generation get destroyed and decide debt is evil. Savings rate skyrockets, companies hoard cash, banks won't lend because they're already insolvent. The BOJ cuts rates to 0 in 1999, still nothing. They invent QE11 years before Ben Bernanke. Still nothing. They go to negative interest rates in 2016, literally paying people to borrow. Still nothing. The trauma is psychological. The entire country is financially shell-shocked. And then the demographic tsunami hits. Japan never had a real baby boom after the war the way America did. Birth rates started falling in the 1970s. By the 1990s, women were having 1.4 children on average. Today, it's 1.26 and still dropping. Combine that with the longest life expectancy on Earth, and you get the oldest society ever recorded. In 2025, the median age is 49.8. 1 in 3 people is over 65. 1 in 10 is over 80. There are more adult diapers sold than baby diapers. Entire villages are ghost towns with 0 children. Hundreds of schools close every year. The working age population has been shrinking by roughly 1 million people a year for the last 15 years. 1 million people a year. Gone. Retired, dead, or never born. And because Japan is 98.5% ethnically Japanese and proud of it, immigration is basically illegal for unskilled workers. They'd rather have robots than foreigners. So the population is expected to fall from 125 million today to under 80 million by 2100. That's a 36% decline in 1 century. No modern economy has ever faced anything like this. So if everything I just said is true, why isn't Japan a Mad Max wasteland? Because Japan is the richest poor country that has ever existed. First, they're still insanely rich on a per capita basis. GDP per capita is $40,000, higher than Italy, Spain, or South Korea. Household net worth is one of the highest in the world because almost everyone owns their home outright and has decades of savings. Corporate Japan is sitting on 4 to 5 trillion of cash. The government debt is 260% of GDP, but 90% of it is owned by Japanese banks, companies, and grandmas, not Chinese or Arab funds. Japan is lending money to itself. Default risk is basically 0. Second, the infrastructure is finished. They overbuilt in the 80s and 90s, so hard that they don't need to build anything new. The Shinkansen is perfect. The roads are perfect. The airports are perfect. They just maintain. Maintenance is cheap compared to construction. Third, social cohesion is off the charts. Crime is non-existent. Trust is sky high. You can leave your wallet on a train and get it back with the cash still inside. That saves trillions in security, prisons, lawsuits, insurance, all the hidden costs that eat Western economies alive. Fourth, the companies that matter are global. Toyota makes 70% of its profit outside Japan. Sony, Nintendo, Keyence, Fast Retailing, Uniqlo, Fanuc, they all earn in dollars, euros, yuan. Domestic stagnation barely touches them. Fifth, deflation isn't as bad as people think when you're a creditor nation. Falling prices are great if you already own assets and have no debt. Japanese retirees love deflation because their pensions buy more every year. So Japan isn't growing, but it's also not collapsing. It's coasting on a giant mountain of wealth built in the 20th century. Think of it like a trust fund kid who never has to work again. The principal is so big that even 0% return keeps you in yachts forever. But make no mistake, the cracks are spreading. Hospitals in rural areas are closing because there aren't enough young doctors. Companies can't find engineers. The government is raising taxes on the young to pay pensions for the old. Young people are giving up on marriage, sex, and kids entirely. Herbivore men, hikikomori, johatsu, people who literally pay companies to help them disappear. The social fabric is fraying in slow motion. The debt is now so large that even Japanese savers might not be able to absorb new issuance forever. And when the BOJ finally has to raise rates, the interest bill alone could eat half the budget. Japan is the world's first post-growth, hyper-aged, deflationary, technologically advanced society. And guess what? Europe is 10 years behind. South Korea is 15. China is 25. The United States is maybe 30. We are all Japan-bound. The only question is how gracefully we handle the landing. Japan's real lesson isn't that bubbles are bad. We all know that. The real lesson is that demographics are destiny and psychology is economics. You can have the best factories, the fastest trains, the most cash in the bank. But if your young people stop believing in the future, the game is over. No amount of QE can fix a country that doesn't want to reproduce. So the next time someone tells you Japan is stuck, smile and say, yeah, stuck at the top of Maslow's pyramid while the rest of us are still fighting over food. Japan isn't dying. It's the rest of us who haven't caught up to the future yet.